Old World, Florida. Dr. Narco Longo. Brought to you by the Florida Department of Magic. Welcome to Florida, baby. Florida is the original Garden of Eden. Florida has the highest concentration of freshwater springs in the world. Florida oranges are the golden apples of mythology. A race of giant men once roamed this peninsula. The Smithsonian can suck my balls. Florida is littered with many ancient megalithic ship anchors, known as sacks or stones. I'm bringing Saxa back. Noah's Ark was constructed out of gopher wood. Gopher wood only grows one place in the world, Florida. Orlando, Florida.
What's up, everybody? Happy Saturday. It's December 13th. I'm coming to you live from the Dancing Elephant in Lake Worth Beach, Florida. And we've got an exciting show tonight. A show that the content of which you haven't seen anywhere on YouTube. Okay. No one talks about this. People are afraid to talk about it, I guess, is what we have to assume. But, it's not well known, but I think it's fascinating. So, we're going to be talking about racial astrology tonight. Racial astrology and the 5 planetary root races of humanity. Now, we're throwing a Hail Mary here pretty deep down the field because everything up until now has kind of been the basics of astrology, introductory astrology. Now we are diving into something that's, controversial, kind of, who knows? We'll see. And right up front, we've got to just say, of course, this is not going to be a denigrating show by any means. I think astrology is actually the best way to understand and exalt all of the races, okay? To kind of see them in their best light. So, we're going to be talking about some interesting stuff tonight, but that's the overview. And before we get too deep into it, let's say what's up to Merlin.
Yo, what's up? I'm buckled up for tonight, ready to see where this goes, and I think it should be a good show. Hopefully, God willing. So, yeah, I don't know obviously as much as you do about this topic, but I'm here to learn. I'm here to share what I know and see what's going on, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Pretty busy day here at the bookstore. And sorry, everyone. Yesterday, Friday, I was supposed to do a show about elongated skulls. Something happened. Thursday I was supposed to do it. I needed another day, rescheduled. Last night, everyone was waiting. I kept them waiting for like an hour, and I had to reschedule that too. So I'm sorry, guys. But last night we had a pretty good talk going on in the bookstore, and it ran over. We stayed over a little bit, and it just wasn't worth staying up and forcing it and rushing. So we're gonna do the elongated skull show. I know a lot of people were excited about that one. I guess the delay has been elongated, you could say. Okay. It's but yes, exactly. Someone beat me to the joke there. But that's an interesting one. It'll be cool. We might talk a little bit about head shapes and phrenology tonight too. So here, let me put us in our little place. Nice. So guys, this is a continuation of our Casting Couch Astrology podcast. This is 6th or 7th, right? Episode we've done about maybe the 5th.
Something like that. It's 6 at least.
Yeah. So, like I said, lots of good stuff, introductory and some niche information. But tonight we're going down the road about the races. We're going to talk about the planets who influence or rule each of the races. We're going to be talking about the 5 original root races of humanity. And yeah, we'll get into it, but how about we say what's up to the people real quick? You guys drop a tangerine in the chat. Drop something orange in the chat if you want us to shout you out and say hello. I see some longtime supporters already in here. We're at 200 people in the chat. Thanks to everyone for showing up. Crickets. I'm gonna throw some music on. Fucking vibes are stale as hell.
We're just getting. I throw my screen up. I got some of those charts ready.
Just teasing. So yeah, what have you heard about racial astrology up until now? Much?
Well,
Anything?
you know, like I got my astrological learning from reading, you know, a lot of the old great books, and there is agreement. You know, even Ptolemy goes back to, oh, you know, this region, such and such region, is ruled by such and such sign. You know, that's been a constant in astrological tradition, and most of the greats do agree on them pretty much. The books tend to leave the actual, you know, races of the peoples out of it, and they mention more the region. You know, the region is influenced by such and such, but
Totally.
maybe that's because, you know, like the races and regions were once, you know, one and the same, essentially, back, you know, at least back in the day. So maybe that's why that's the case. But that's about what I know of it.
That's a good point, and that's something I wanted to touch on up front is talking about there are kind of more popular approaches to looking at like anthropology and the races that use astrology, or kind of, you know, bring astrological vocabulary into the mix. This is something that pretty much no one talks about on the internet. This is a direct planetary rulership over 5 races, who are kind of like all the different groups and different races and nations we have today are more or less like a on a palette, like a color, like a painter's palette or whatever they have. There's 5 original colors basically, and we get all these different colors and shapes and sizes from those 5 colors, those 5 planetary root races. But like Merlin mentioned, a lot of people use astrology when they're looking at like nations, and that can like imply a certain group of people and their descendants, you know, like a blood group basically, but it's not necessarily that. And that is more coming from modern times looking back. What we're saying with the root races is go back to the beginning and see where everything forks off originally from. Also, a lot of people use astrology like the birthday of a country. And so we don't want to get confused with that. And I more or less believe in that, but that's not what we're talking about either. So people will say like, okay, America, July 4th, right? Cancer. And that's correct. But that's not what we're talking about. We are talking more about bone structure, blood memory, you know, planetary origin. And that's another thing, that's a good segue here, is this is like the ultimate dunk, boom, on people who think that races came from like other planets, like in the UFO sense, in the alien,
Oh yeah, dude.
Anunnaki sense.
Yeah.
Like Nikola Tesla saying, "Oh, I had a planetary communication with Venus or something." And then people who are, you know, sci-fi thinking is a symptom of gross materialization. Every time you see planetary influence or communication or some recognition or, you know, like thankfulness, like someone saying, "Oh yeah, this constellation or this planet gave us agriculture," for example. If you're a dumb materialist, you go, "Durr, that means they got in their rocket ship and went from here to there, and they had to bring that information like an Uber Eats order," right? Essentially is what you're saying. All that ancient alien garbage is so full of shit, and they think they're like ahead of the game. They think they're like ahead of the mainstream, but they are so materialistic. They think everything has to go from point A to point B. And that's why they come up with these extremely retarded like space jump, wormhole, folding time theories to explain how the things that are up there and according to the Bible are heavenly and celestial and ethereal, they need to grasp everything because they're scientific materialists. They need to grab everything like a big pair of boobs. They just need to touch all the rocks and the round things up there. They need everything to be tangible, right? You see, when we expose it from this side, you can't unsee it. These people are gross materialists. No matter what they're talking about, vibration, frequency, interplanetary travel, it's always rocks banging into each other. It's always one thing going to somewhere else.
It's impossible to understate how much heliocentrism warps and damages the mind, you know, because it leads to you just naturally having to make up some nonsense in order to justify how things are the way they are. You know, it's actually insane how bad it warps the mind. And there's just infinite examples of it.
Someone said your mic's a lot louder than mine.
Oh, I'll turn it down.
Go to your settings and see the like automatically adjust mic volume. Do you have that checked?
Where in settings is that?
Audio.
I'll take a look. I could just talk lower.
Maybe.
Audio.
What do you guys think? Is that just one person, or what do you think?
I'm just loud sometimes. I'll chill.
Okay. Saturn Rooster says they're fine. No, you're good. Talk how you want.
Oh, I'm okay.
Oh
I shall. God. I shall.
Someone's so salty in the comments.
Someone's so salty? What happened? Are they already upsetty?
No, someone said... Watch. Someone said Merlin is way louder.
Oh, okay.
And then this fucking loser, I don't know if they're joking, says, let's see. Dr. Longo doesn't want anyone's microphone louder than his. I'm a pretty quiet talker. Okay. But thanks. Thanks for the support, New Orleans. So, we're not talking about countries' birthdays. We're not talking about species coming from other planets. Okay, maybe some people might get confused by the title, right? Planetary races. They think these are like space people coming from different corners of the galaxy. No, we're not saying that either. We're saying that just like all the metals that exist in the Earth have always been here for millions or billions of years, each have and I hate to say frequency, you know, I hate how frequency is said by freaks named Quincy, okay? But, you know, this is not... The metals each have their own vibration, frequency, whatever you want to say. Ugh, I cringe when people say that. I hear it so much at the bookstore. But each of these metals has their own pitch, astrological sympathy, right? This is sympathetic magic. Each metal has its own color. And at the bare minimum, we're talking about color association, right? Everything in nature gets filed into color. And beyond that, you can believe in other spectrums if you choose to, right? But color is obvious and authoritative, right? Unless you're colorblind. And there's 7 rays. There's 12 chromatic colors. That lines up with astrology. So what we're going to talk about is just like how the metals, which all exist here and originated here, each have a planetary association. Mars, iron, copper, Venus, tin, Jupiter, silver, the moon, gold, the sun, lead, Saturn. Am I missing any? That's the
Mercury, you know, Quicksilver.
Mercury, yep. That's the main 7. You can believe in some others, right?
Uranium, plutonium.
Yep. Bingo, yeah. And so that all lines up. That's all good. And remember, our periodic table of elements used to be arranged by some in octaves. In octaves. Isn't that crazy? Helium is like a gas version of gold, you could almost say. Helios, gold, the sun. AU, right? August, AU, August, Leo,
Yep.
Helio. All this lines up. So why would the races, who each have their own pronounced color, at the very least, not be neatly filed into these, astrological types, you could say? So that's what we're going to be talking about. We're not talking about space. We're not talking about country of origin or anything like that. We're talking about planetary influence and an innate association between a group of people and a planet. So, thoughts on that? Roland?
Yeah, and just like you said, the caveat is this won't be denigrating as much as we can make it not denigrating, and like all the planets, guys, have positives and negatives. Just like all different groups of people, when they get together and congregate, have positives and negatives, right? So like, the planets rule animals, the planets rule plants, minerals, rocks, metals. They also rule, ethnicities, phenotypes, shit like that. So like that's what this is getting at, like Longo is saying. So
Yeah, we're
man.
not talking about ethnicity tonight. We're talking about ethernicity tonight. Okay, we're going deep. We're talking about oversouls here. Root races and oversouls. You can flush that ancient alien stuff down the toilet. And I'll be upfront about the parts that are like potentially denigrating or potentially could be used as a recipe for like a racial supremacy argument for all the races. There's an element to that.
Yep.
Like Merlin said, each of the planets, it can be amazing or a little bit debilitating, right? They each have an ability to benefit and to detriment a little bit. So, okay. First, we talked about the ancient alien thing. We talked about people who associate the zodiac or planets with the country of origin or a country's birthday, or sometimes it's just like the English, right? We were talking about earlier being associated with Aries or Mars, the Irish being associated with Aries, airy, iron. There used to be legends in Ireland about you could stick a piece of wood into the ground in certain places in Ireland, leave it for like, I don't know, days, weeks, something like that. Come back, pull it, and it would be a rod of iron. Wood.
That's pretty cool.
Turned to iron in Ironland. So, all right, let's look at some of these. A third part of this would be, 200 years ago, 300 years ago, there were some wild, like, anthropological theories, right? There was a lot of phrenology going on. There was a lot of root race theory. Evolution, right, was beginning to kind of take over, you could say, in the latter half of the 19th century. 1800s, after the Civil War, right, evolution starts picking up a lot. And by, I don't know, 1920, it was being taught in schools, in American schools.
I miss Tartaria, man.
Very, very prevalent. Before they took away our shaped Pizza Hut buildings and our Tartarian McDonald's play castles.
Now we need bathrooms and shit. It's crazy.
So one of those old anthropological theories that was pretty prevalent, which kind of relates to this a little bit, maybe not, is animal associations. That each of the races had an animal association. And remember, at the end of the day, zodiac means zodiac, right? It's a zoo. The zodiac is a zoo. 12, zodiac means 12, zo and dia, 2 and 10. But it also means zodiac, which is like a collection of animals. So even if we aren't calling this astrology, it in a way is indirect astrology, right? Because even if you're taking the planets out of it, if you're going to associate one group with one animal, well, that animal's going to have a planetary association too. So this is kind of scratching on the surface of the same thread, but yeah. And we won't talk about this too much, but basically you've got so this is different. Did you have any luck finding
This is the one you texted me, I thought. So I got a couple things here. I got that. This is like a zoomed in version of that. Is this, and I couldn't find the what you mentioned earlier with the planets and shit. So as far as the anthropology stuff, it's pretty much this.
Yeah. Let me try and find. Man, this chart was crazy. It's got like eagle man, horse man.
Oh yeah, so you were saying that it like had the different animals like transposed onto like the faces with like various
I found it.
Sweet.
Here, I'm just gonna Google share my screen, I guess. One second here. Okay, so I had to search to find it. It was hard to find, but stuff like this was pretty prevalent in like anthropological circles, where they would be associating different races or groups with certain animals. And like I said, this is kind of like an indirect astrological association. You see, and we see people like this, and I don't even know if this is a racial thing, if it's more just like a character type or a personality type that it can get printed on anyone from any family. We all see people like this who might have sometimes rat faces, a little bit of a pig face, right?
100%, dude.
You see people with an upturned nose very often act the same. They have similar traits and qualities. Little, what do they call that? Snobby, snooty, right?
Yeah. And these things can happen no matter what, color your skin is. You can have these different, things manifest.
Totally.
Like some physiognomy shit right here.
Yeah. This gets into phrenology a little bit. So this stuff's crazy, but even this is not necessarily what we're going to be talking about. But I wanted to shout it out because there were some wild theories going around 1700s, 1800s, before the whole evolution thing, got ironed out and took over. So, okay. Let's go look. Got some rabbit-faced people.
Oh, unfortunate. No huzz.
Let's look at damn coon people. That's rough.
Yeah.
Coon's definitely low tier.
Rough roll of the dice.
So, okay. Let's get back into the planetary types. I've got to shout out Rudolf Steiner. Rudolf Steiner is where I first heard about the planetary race, root race theory. He talks about it in his own way, right? And it has a lot more to do. He kind of puts it on a timeline, which I guess I'm not going to say I disagree with. He's an authority, in his own right, but he's framing it as if it's kind of aligned with the theosophical, anthroposophical. They had so many, basically like evolution, like an evolution chronology to a lot of their stuff. I don't know if
Yeah.
I share that same, developmental approach, right? That where the races are just kind of sprouting out of the last one and they're dying and new ones are coming out. I kind of just believe in the 5 races always being here, and we're just going to get different mixtures all around as the land masses and sea levels kind of shift. We get just different pepperings and seasonings of different mixtures around the continents. But we're going to read from Rudolf Steiner first, and then we'll kind of add to his theories. And we're going to be making a lot of observations. I know you guys are going to make a ton of observations once you hear the associations. It's a bunch of things are going to jump out to you. We had some great comments on the Miami Vice stream I did a week or two ago. I should have opened that up to calls because there were so many good comments. But throw some stuff in comments if you got good information once we reveal these. But all right, Merlin, talk for a sec while I.
Sure, yeah. So yeah, Rudolf Steiner heavily influenced by Helena Blavatsky, who was a fat, ugly fraud. It's really sad how influential the Theosophical Society was back in the day, because they were so blessed to have great minds like Steiner and Thomas H. Burgoyne among their membership. And it's sad, like looking back in retrospect, how much their ideas and lives were corrupted by fucking absolute atrocious people like H.P. Blavatsky. Truly fat, ugly, hirsute, nasty, by all accounts, a nasty woman. So just the influence she had it's fucked up, and you still see it today. That's modern astrology, and why it's so dog shit is because of the Theosophical Society. So sophistry is no good. It goes back to rhetoric, just being perceived as right, not being correct. And then it's just dog shit. I'll wrap it up.
No, that's good. I can honestly say I have no impulse to defend H.P. Blavatsky. I'm not a huge fan of her visually or kind of her ideas. I haven't read much. I've tried a little bit. I just didn't feel like I was gaining much, not trying to be like, she definitely knows her stuff, but yeah, her, the track record kind of speaks for itself, and the whole, whatever. We won't get into it. I've got this Steiner article queued up here. This is from the Rudolf Steiner Archive, a project of Steiner Online Library, public charity.
Damn, they're raising $43,000 a year? Holy shit.
Now we're looking at this article, or I guess a talk. It's like a note of a lecture, I think. The mission of the individual folk souls.
Do you want to put us to the side on StreamYard real quick so we can see the whole thing?
Good point. Thank you.
Yep.
The 5 root races of mankind. We're going to be doing some reading here, guys, so make sure you spark up, pour yourself a little liquid sunshine, and get comfy. And Merlin, I'll read for a little, and then we can switch off, if that's cool.
Yeah, sounds good. You just let me know when to take over.
Cool. So this is Rudolf Steiner talking. Go check him out if you don't know who he is. We've got a very big Steiner selection here at the bookstore. Okay. It is a very complicated matter, as you may well imagine, when the spirits of the different hierarchies have to coordinate their forces in such a way that the mission of the Earth can be fulfilled and ultimately a state of balance or equilibrium be achieved. You will understand, therefore, that statements such as those made in our last lecture are valid only insofar as they refer to a definite period in evolution, and that the whole picture changes immediately. One depicts evolution at another period. Hence, in order to arrive at a fuller understanding of these complex problems, a particular course of lectures cannot be isolated from the rest. I shall here draw attention to one point only, and what I am about to say is to be taken as footnote or addendum to the lectures on the spiritual hierarchies. In creating the harmony or equilibrium of our Earth, the whole cooperation of the hierarchies is involved, and we must envisage the spirits of will, the cherubim, and the seraphim, which we described yesterday as the highest hierarchy, as raying outward from the Earth. We must envisage these beings as originally working inward from the universe towards the center of the Earth. Man does not become aware of these forces in the former aspect, but only in the latter aspect, when they are reflected from the Earth's center. You will only be able, therefore, to form a complete picture of the very intimate processes which here take place if you compare what was said in my last lecture with the more detailed information about the hierarchies in the lecture course given at Dusseldorf, in which a comprehensive picture was given of the cosmic activity of the three hierarchies. Just to pause here real quick. Cherubim, let's shout out the show we did earlier. What was that, episode 2?
2 or 3, yeah. It was the cross symbolism. I think it was episode 2. The cross symbolism was a big hit.
Yeah, the cross symbolism in astrology and the golden age, the fixed cross, the cardinal cross, the mutable cross. Jesus being up there on a cross and he's got a cross on either side of him seems to be indicative of the same kind of planetary opera happening, a cosmic opera happening. But so cherubim we've talked about. Cherubim is the 4 fixed signs of the zodiac. Okay, moving on. These things are by no means so simple, and in order to make the mission of the Earth comprehensible, we must approach this problem in such a way that we are prepared to accept that the spirits of those hierarchies are reflected in the elements of Earth existence. If you bear this in mind, you will also sense the infinite wisdom inherent in a universe of relationships. To a certain extent, you will also feel that the field of knowledge must be continually enlarged, that it is unlimited. Since things are so complicated that when we imagine we have grasped one point of view, we immediately reject it in favor of another, which throws light on the problem from a different angle. We can only advance step by step in our knowledge. Nevertheless, from the indications given in the last lecture, especially at the close of that lecture, you will have a clearer understanding of the cooperation between the normal and abnormal spirits of form, a cooperation which ensures that the population of the Earth should not be limited to a single homogeneous species spread over the whole Earth, but that a diversity of individual races should be possible. In order to achieve that corporate humanity, which is only possible to man in the course of Earth evolution, it would have been necessary for the normal spirits of form to act independently. These are the same spiritual beings who in Genesis are called the Elohim. In the whole universe which surrounds the Earth and together with the Earth forms a single whole, we can distinguish 7 of these normal spirits of form. There are therefore 7 spirits of form, or 7 Elohim, as I've always said. If we wish to form a conception of these 7 Elohim, with their various missions and their task of establishing harmony or love as the ultimate mission of the earth, we must clearly understand that these 7 spirits of form cooperate in such a way that what we described in Lecture 4 as, quote, man in the second third of his life would become a reality. Thus, if all these 7 spirits of form could work in accordance with their declared intention, then collectively they would fashion the real ego being. But as other spiritual beings cooperate with them and diversify this uniform humanity, it was found necessary to make special preparations in the cosmos. If today you wish to find in the cosmos the sphere of activity of the normal spirits of form, those beings who, as I described yesterday, shine down upon us in the light from our present cosmos, then you must seek for them in the sun. You must always look towards the sun sphere for that cosmic lodge, that community in the universe where these spirits of form plan to establish the earthly harmony and to fulfill the mission of earth evolution. Lest the activity of the abnormal spirits of form should provoke too great a disharmony amongst mankind, one of the spirits had to detach himself from the community. In reality, therefore, only 6 spirits of form, or Elohim, work from the sun. One of these spirits had to detach himself lest the simultaneous activity of the abnormal spirits of form, who are really spirits of movement, should disturb the balance or harmony. It was the spirit who in the Bible, in Genesis, is called Yahweh or Jehovah. If you wish to follow his activity in the universe, you must look for it, not in the sun sphere, but in the moon sphere, at a particular epoch. I have touched upon this in my Occult Science, which is a popular book, and outlined from another angle, where I have shown that the spirits of form withdraw with the separation of the sun, but in the special disposition following upon the separation of the moon. The preliminary conditions were first established for the further evolution of man. For if the moon had remained united with the earth, the evolution of man could not have taken place. This further evolution of man has only been made possible because one of the Elohim, Yahweh, accompanied the separation of the moon, while the other 6 spirits remained in the sun, and because Yahweh cooperated with his 6 colleagues to counteract the forces of the backward spirits of movement. Now the separation of the sun was a necessity for the following reasons. After certain older spirits of movement, who possessed more potent forces than the spirits of form, for they stand higher in the rank of the hierarchies, had decided to remain behind, the normal spirits of form were obliged to modify their activity by detaching one of their members. Otherwise, they would not have been able to establish the balance or harmony necessary for further evolution. How are we doing? You still awake, Merlin?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm with you. It's good stuff, and it's so like theosophical because it relates back to Helena Blavatsky's. Like you said earlier, this wasn't necessarily about like the races existing at the same time. They thought that like it was kind of like their theory of the ages. At every so and so thousand years, a new type of human would evolve and emerge to dominate and make their will, the one that overwhelms Earth essentially.
Yeah. No Coiner 5599 with the $10 says, "Hey guys, on X, I have an article called The Epigenetics of Circumcision. 100 generations of trauma plus removal of sensory organ, limbic system and hypothalamus, and Mideast psychosomatic phenotype offshoot." All right. That's cool.
Yep.
I don't know what to do with that, but go check it out if you guys are interested. And honestly, just to throw my hat, just to throw my 2 cents in on the whole circumcision debate and the whole loss of nerves, like, bruh, I'm good, bro. I don't need any more nerves. Okay, we're doing good over here. But you know, more sensitivity is not the problem. Okay, but
Oh,
I always,
circumcision's a crime.
I always thought that was funny when people are like, bro, you ain't feeling. It ain't feeling good enough, bro. Like you're already fapping like all day long if you're complaining about it. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I've heard that argument from women before, how it's like, oh, men seem to have no problem with it even if they're circumcised, but it's like there's no way to know what it's like being not clipped, essentially. You know what I mean? So like you don't know what you're missing, essentially.
Yeah,
And you never will. So it's like the comparison has been robbed,
Yeah.
And it's definitely unnatural because God made us perfect. So why would you it's like cutting off the labia or the clit, it's like awful, people recognize female genital mutilation as, abhorrent and barbaric. And yet we perform, dude, man, no, this shit pisses me off, dude. Like the fucking pictures of like, you see of like, what they do in hospitals, and these fucking sick nurses, the glee they have, where like, oh, here's our circumcision station, and it's like just like fucking stained, and it's like, bro, like I fucking hate you people so much, like I fucking hate you. So yeah, no, I'm very anti-circumcision. It's fucked up, man. The circumcision in the Bible, I think, is spiritual, not physical.
Yeah, circumcision of the heart, perhaps.
Yeah. Just like tithing is also, spiritual. You got your left brain and your right brain, so you tithe that 10% to the 90%, essentially. That's like some Bill Donahue shit right there. Shut up, Bill Donahue.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to do another show on circumcision. We're talking about what do we call it? Circumvention? What would you call this? Circumvention, I guess. That's right. Going around the planets. Okay.
Yeah.
Basically, all right, let's get back to it. Oh, we didn't shout anyone out that dropped oranges in the chat. We just forgot about that. Sorry, y'all.
Chat knows they're dope.
Yeah, I just got too excited. Sorry. Where were we? Okay, now we're about to get into the planets. If we wish to have a clear idea of the activities of these normal spirits of form, it is best to think of them as streaming down to us in the sunlight. If, however, we wish to understand how the abnormal spirits of form cooperate with the normal spirits of form, who are centered in the sun, for Jahve withdrew towards the moon sphere solely for the purpose of establishing the equilibrium. Then we must imagine that a certain sun force, which streams towards us in the normal spirits of form, is modified by the force that rays down to us from the abnormal spirits of form, who are really spirits of movement. These have their center in the other 5 planets, in Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Venus, and Mercury, speaking in terms of the 7 heavenly bodies of ancient astronomy. When you look out into the cosmos, you now have a picture of the distribution of the normal and abnormal spirits of form. 6 of the normal spirits of form are centered in the sun, and one of them, Jahve or Jehovah, from the sphere of the moon, acts as a counterpoise by virtue of this function as regent and guide of that sphere. The activities of these spirits of form are influenced by the activities proceeding from Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Venus, and Mercury. The forces of the abnormal spirits stream down upon the earth. The forces of the abnormal spirits stream down upon the earth, are arrested by the earth, and ray outward again from the earth center, as was described at the close of the last lecture. Keep in mind here, there's a little bit of like bad grammar because this is German translated into English. So it might be a little wordy and it might be a little bit, kind of some sentences might be a little skewed. But here, so you want to start reading? Can you?
Yeah, I got you. Thus, if the Elohim or normal spirits of form operating from the sun are active in a particular region of the Earth's surface, then only the normal I, that which determines man's normal being, his general makeup, would come into existence in that particular region. Now the forces of Mercury, for example, mingle with these forces of the normal spirits of form which, but for the state of equilibrium, would dance upon the surface of the earth. Hence, in that which here manifests in the potent forces of the spirits of form, there dance and vibrate not only the normal forces, but also that which intermingles with the normal forces of the Elohim, or spirits of form, namely, that which emanates from the abnormal spirits of form, who are centered in the several planets. Thus we see... go ahead.
Just if any of these paragraphs are too... if you don't want to read them, I can read them, by the way. But
am I doing a bad job?
No, you're doing a great job, but it's about to say Negro is basically...
Oh, I got you, dude. I appreciate you, bro. Thank you. Thus we see that through these abnormal spirits of form, there are 5 potential centers of influence, where these reflected planetary forces are concentrated and produce, in effect, what we know as the 5 root races of the Earth. Let us look now more closely into the center which, in Lecture 4, we situated in the interior of Africa. If we state that the Negro race was born of the cooperation between the normal spirits of form and the abnormal spirits of form centered in Mercury, then from an occult standpoint, we are perfectly correct in describing the Negro race as the, quote, Mercury race. Let us now continue along the line, joining the centers or focal points from which the individual races spread outward. We then come to Asia, which is the seat of the Venus race, or Malayan race. I assume Mongolian as well is what they mean as well. We then move northward across the wide expanse of Asia. And we find the Mongolian race, which is formed by the Mars forces. Then we cross over into Europe and find the Europeans, who in their original racial character are Jupiter men. If we cross the ocean to America, which is the center where civilizations or races die, we find their dark Saturn's race, the original Red Indian race. The American Indian race is the, quote, Saturn race. Thus, if you look into the matter more closely from an occult standpoint, you will become aware of the 5 centers where the planetary forces are concentrated and are manifested in the external world. So there we go. That's a lot of the meat and potatoes right there of the 5.
Yeah. You want to keep going?
Yeah, I got you. With the progressively more definite and concrete conception of this racial distribution, you will develop an inner understanding of the racial characteristics peculiar to the peoples spread over the earth. An understanding of this unique cooperation of the normal and abnormal spirits of form. We have thus sketched the picture as we are able to capture it at a definite moment in time. But what I have said about the different centers on the earth is again only valid for a specific epoch of evolution. It is valid for the epoch when, at a definite moment of time in the old Atlantean evolution, the peoples began to migrate from a center in Atlantis and sought the particular center where they could receive the training appropriate to their race. Hence, in my book, Occult Science, I point out that in old Atlantis, specific mystery centers called the Atlantean Oracles were responsible for directing this distribution of peoples over the earth. so that, in effect, that state of balance or equilibrium could be achieved, which led to the proper distribution of the races. In one such mystery oracle, the truths of which we are now speaking were always investigated, and originally, man took his direction entirely from them. In this manner, the events on Earth were determined in accordance with these spiritual centers. The wave of peoples who swept across Africa and crystallized the Ethiopian race is an expression of an impulse from the Mercury oracle.
Crystallized into.
Did I? Oh, my apologies. And
all right.
crystallized into the Ethiopian race is an expression of an impulse from the Mercury oracle, in which one could clearly observe the cooperation of the normal spirits of form, the six Elohim and Jahve or Jehovah, and also the participation of the abnormal spirits of form working from the Mercury center. The center of equilibrium on Earth was selected in accordance with the right astrological conjunction of planetary forces at the various centers, and the point of radiation for the race in question was determined thereby. The formation of the other races was determined in a similar way. In accordance with these determining factors, the grand design is drawn up, charting the cosmic influences in relation to peoples, families, etc. It is an image of cosmic activity and reflects the planetary forces which stream down into the Earth, ray outwards from the Earth, and determine man's destiny. Now, how do we look upon a member of the Ethiopian... Can you scroll up a bit? Yeah, thank you. That cuts my screen. Now, how do we look upon a member of the Ethiopian race, or of the Mercury race? We see him as one who was originally chosen, who was predestined by the Elohim to express the quintessence of the all-human. But from the Mercury center, the potent influences of the abnormal spirits of form intervened and modified the form of man to such an extent that the Ethiopian race arose. And such was the case with each individual race. The migrations of the peoples were specifically directed from the original center. This is indicated by the line linking the focal points or centers in my diagram a few days ago. You must therefore imagine the spirits of form radiating from a center, which we must assume existed at a definite moment of time in Old Atlantis. These spirits of form rayed down into the Atlantean continent and fashioned it in such a way that the human souls were brought under the dominion of the corresponding abnormal spirits of form.
I can take over if you want.
Yeah, sure.
Cool. In this way, the broad foundations of the races were laid. And when man looks up into the infinite expanse of the macrocosm, he must seek there the forces out. He must seek there the forces out, of which he was built up. He is fashioned by their spiritual rays, reflected from the earth center. And when he looks up to the normal spirits of form, the Elohim, he is looking up to that which actually makes him into man. When he looks up to the forces concentrated in the individual, planetary spirits, with the exception of the sun and moon, he perceives the forces which determine his membership of a particular race. Now, how do these race spirits work in and upon man? They work in a very unique way. They permeate his vital energies. They penetrate even down into his physical body. Now you know that the four fundamental members of man. Now you know that the four fundamental members of man find their impress and are reflected in corresponding parts of the physical body. The eye finds its impress in the blood, the astral body in the nervous system, the etheric or life body in the glandular system. Only the physical body is self-sufficient. It is a reflection of its own inner being, which for the man of the present is subject to its own fixed laws. Now those spiritual beings who are stirring in man and determine his racial character cannot at first work directly into his higher vehicles. They are active, first of all, in those reflections of the higher vehicles in the physical body. They cannot as yet enter directly into the physical body, but they are active in the three other members: in the blood, which is the reflection of the eye; in the nervous system, the reflection of the astral body; and in the glandular system, which is the reflection of the etheric body. The race spirits, the abnormal spirits of form, are active in these three systems, which are part of man's organic system, but are reflections of the higher vehicles. Thus, the physical body of man is determined from within. These various spiritual beings invade those members of the physical body, which are the preliminary drafts, the suggestions of the higher vehicles. Now where, for instance, does Mercury make his influence felt? Under Mercury, I include all the abnormal spirits of form to be found in Mercury. He makes his influence felt by cooperating with others, especially in the glandular system. He is active in the glandular or lymphatic system, where are manifested the forces born of that preponderance of the Mercury forces, which are present in the Ethiopian race. Everything which gives the Ethiopian race its distinctive character stems from the ferment of the Mercury forces in the glandular system of this people. What transforms the undifferentiated universal human form into the distinctive Ethiopian type, with his black pigmentation and woolly or frizzy hair, is the consequence of their activity. If you now move over to Asia, you will find there likewise the planetary forces of Venus, an abnormal development of the spirits of form. By transferring their point of attack principally to what we call the impress of the astral body, these Venus forces work in the nervous system. They work upon the nervous system, however, in a peculiar way, not directly as Venus spirits. For the nervous system can be worked upon indirectly in two ways. One way is through the respiration. By working especially upon the respiration, these activities of the Venus spirits are localized in the respiratory and nervous system and give it a definite form. In this indirect way, the abnormal spirits of form, whom we may call Venus beings, work through the respiratory and nervous system in the Malayan race, in the yellowish-brown races found in southern Asia, and in the direction of the Malay archipelago. Just as the glandular system is found distributed over Ethiopia, so in these regions is found the type of man in whom the abnormal spirits of form work upon the nervous system, indirectly through the respiratory system. In the nervous system is prepared that which, with special modifications, produces a more or less yellow-skinned racial types. The more or less yellow-skinned racial types. The transformation wrought in these races manifests itself more in that part of the nervous system, covered by the term solar plexus, not in the higher or central nervous system, therefore, but in that mysterious part of the nervous system which runs in two cords parallel with the spinal medulla and branches out in various directions to form a network. This part of the nervous system, therefore, which, from our point of view, is not yet associated with higher mental activity, is worked upon indirectly through the respiratory system. The unconscious organism is deeply stirred by these Venus forces which work in these racial types. I just want to pause right here and kind of clarify that the Malay race, I would call this the Southern Asian or Middle Eastern race. And this, the Venusian type, I'm going to stretch all the way from India all the way to Egypt. So like South Asian, Arabs, all that. Everything from India to Egypt. There's a definitive root race, definitive type that links them all together. And this is separate. And he's saying yellow, which is a little bit misleading, but I don't know. He's going to call the martial race maybe a little red or something. But, the martial race is the more yellow race, the Asian race. I would have said brown or like purplish or, what would you call Indian people? What color are they?
Brown?
Charcoal-ish?
Yeah. It's interesting too because Islam is very prominent there, and that is a Venusian religion entirely.
Poop colored.
Hey. Poo-astrology? Fuck Vedic astrology.
Astrology. ASS. Astrology. We put the ass in astrology over here.
We sure do.
All the races are welcomed on the casting couch, by the way. So let's keep it moving.
Need a break?
No, I'm good for a little bit longer.
Oh.
Where were we? Okay, here. Let us now move northward to the wide Mongolian plains, where are largely concentrated those spirits of form who work indirectly through the spirits of the blood. In this geographical area is prepared in the forces of the blood, that which brings about a modification of the human species and determines the basic character of the race. There is, however, a very peculiar feature attaching to the Mongolian race. The Mars spirits enter into the blood, but they work in the blood in a specific manner. They are able to counteract the influence of the 6 Elohim, who are centered in the sun. In the Mongolian race, therefore, they work in opposition to these 6 Elohim. At the same time, they actively oppose the influence of Jahve, or Jehovah, who has withdrawn his field of action from that of the 6 Elohim. But apart from this interaction of the spirits, of the Mars spirits, with the 6 Elohim and Jahve, which produces the Mongolian race, there is another factor of paramount importance, which must be taken into consideration. Just as in the one case, the Mars spirits in opposition to the 6 Elohim from the sun, and Jahve from the moon, create the Mongolian race, so in another case we must assume that the Jahve forces from the moon sphere meet and cooperate with the Mars spirits, and thus a special kind of modification arises, namely the Semitic race. Damn. So he's getting into kind of the mixtures already. Here is the occult explanation for the origin of the Semites. The Semitic people are an example of a modification of collective humanity. Jahve, or Jehovah, shuts himself off from the other Elohim and invests this people with a special character by cooperating with the Mars spirits in order to bring about a special modification of his people. You will now understand the peculiar character of the Semitic people and its mission. In a profound occult sense, the biblical writer was able to claim that Jahve, or Jehovah, had made this people his own. If you add this to the fact that Jahve cooperated with the Mars spirits, who worked principally in the blood, you will understand why racial continuity through the bloodstream was of particular importance to the Semitic Hebrew people, and why Jahve describes himself as the God who is present in the blood of the generations, in the blood of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. When he declared himself to be the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, he claimed that he was present in the bloodstream of the patriarchs. Whatsoever works in the blood, whatsoever must be determined through the blood, the cooperation with the Mars spirits, that is one of the mysteries, which give us a deep insight into the wise guidance of all mankind. The blood of mankind is thus subject to a twofold influence. 2 races emerge, the Mongolian race and the Semitic race, This points to the existence of an important polarity in mankind, and we must emphasize the immense importance of this polarity if we wish to plumb the depths of the folk souls. I'll do one more paragraph, then you can take over. We must now turn our attention to the Western Center and trace the way in which the dynamic forces of the spirits and beings who are centered in Jupiter operate in man. These elect to work directly upon the nervous system via the outer life of the senses. This is the one way. In the other, the planetary forces work into the sympathetic nervous system, entering indirectly into the solar plexus through the respiratory system. Now the Jupiter forces work indirectly through the sense impressions and from there radiate to those parts of the central nervous system, which are situated in the brain and spinal cord. Here is the seat of those forces which determine the particular racial character of those races belonging to the Jupiter humanity. This applies more or less to the Aryans, to the people of Asia Minor and Europe, who we regard as members of the Caucasian race. In these peoples, the modification of the generic character, which stems from the abnormal spirits of form, is accounted for by the influence upon the senses of the abnormal spirits, whom we may describe as Jupiter spirits. The Caucasians, therefore, are determined through the senses. Now you will also, or here, you want to take over?
Only if you're good, man. You let me know.
Yeah, you take over.
All right.
We're here real quick. We got 400 in the chat. So thanks everyone for being here. We appreciate everyone for turning out. We've also got a couple chats here. Jeffrey Walensky. This is from NoCoiner5599 again, the $5. It says Jeffrey Walensky, stellar metamorphosis theory. Planets are dead star cores, much older than stars. Jupiter and Saturn, younger than Earth. Makes you wonder. Maybe. Another tip here from NoCoiner5599. $2. I was raised Jehovah's Witness. Stream give me PTSD. Well, thanks for the support.
Santos was too. He turned out okay. All right. Now you will also understand why a people like the Greeks, who were consciously under the special influence of Jupiter or Zeus, and who felt themselves to be a focal point for the Zeus influence, were predominantly determined by what flows into the nervous system via the senses. The Greeks, of course, were also influenced by the forces of the Elohim, which stream in from the sun. But the Greeks dedicated everything that acts upon the senses to the service of Jupiter or Zeus, and so achieved greatness. I just lost my place for a sec, I'm sorry. I think is this still on the same paragraph? I think it went a few paragraphs up.
Did it?
Yeah.
Here.
Something happened. There we go. Yeah, okay, so thus achieved greatness. Okay. To them, all external forms, all forms of external life were imbued with deeper meaning. They perceived the spiritual in the physical, and hence became the chief exponents of sculpture and architectonic forms. We have here indicated the very special mission of the Greek people, who are so preeminently the people of Jupiter or Zeus. Even at a time when, especially under the influence of the new planetary constellation, the cooperation of the Jupiter or Zeus forces with the universal Elohim forces took place, they felt themselves to be the people of Zeus. Very true. I mean, they elevated Jupiter above all other planets. You know, they considered Jupiter the king of the gods rather than the sun, which is somewhat unique. All the peoples of Southwest Asia, and especially the European peoples, or the whole. It's got to go down a bit. I'm sorry, I can't see the rest.
Sorry, I wasn't following along.
You're good. On the whole, modifications of this Jupiter influence, and you can well imagine that as man has many senses, many modifications are possible, and that in the formation of the individual peoples within this rude race, peoples who were formed by the influence of the senses upon the nervous system, one or the other of the senses may predominate. Consequently, the various peoples may assume the most diverse forms. According as the eye or the ear or one of the other senses predominates, so will the different peoples respond in this or that way to the particular national tendency within the racial character. In consequence of this, they are faced with quite specific tasks. The particular task of the Caucasian race is to find the way to the spirit through the senses, for this race is orientated chiefly toward the sense world. Here is disclosed something that introduces us to the deeper secrets of occultism. It shows how, in those peoples who are subject to the Venus force... I'll pause for a sec. Oh, so can you move it up a bit? I just can't see the rest. The chat's covering it.
Is this guy joking?
LOL, I'm out on sub.
Get the fuck out of here, Grateful Dead faggot.
Oh, shit.
Who cares? Grateful Dead sucks. Alright, see ya. You won't be missed.
Where's your shotgun sound effect here? Yeah.
Where are we?
The next paragraph where it says, here is disclosed. Put that to the top, please. Thank you. Okay. So here is disclosed something that introduces us to the deeper secrets of occultism. It shows how, in those peoples who are subject to the Venus forces, the initial steps in development, even in occult development, must be concentrated on the respiratory system. Amongst the peoples living more in the Western Hemisphere, on the other hand, the initial steps must start from an enrichment and a spiritualization of the life of the senses. This is experienced by those peoples inhabiting countries more toward the West, in their stages of higher cognition, in imagination, inspiration, and intuition, insofar as the Jupiter spirit originally modified the character. Hence, these two geographical centers were always present in human evolution. The one presided over by the spirits of Venus, the other by those of Jupiter. The Jupiter spirits in particular were perceived in those mysteries in which, as those of you will know who attended my lecture course in Munich last year, the three individualities ultimately came together, the three spiritual beings, Buddha, Zarathustra, or Zarathras, and his later incarnation and that great leader of humanity, Scythianos. This is the council or spiritual conference which, under the guidance of one still greater, set itself the task of investigating the mysterious forces which must be developed for the evolution of humanity, forces which originated from that center, initially connected with the Jupiter forces, and which was preordained in the chart of the cultural centers already mentioned. Finally, the abnormal spirits of form, who have their center in Saturn, work indirectly via all the other systems into the glandular system. In the Saturn race, therefore, in everything to which we must ascribe the Saturn character, we must expect to find the combination of the forces leading to the twilight of mankind, forces which set the seal upon its development, and sow the seeds of its ultimate decline. This action and its effect upon the glandular system can be seen in the American Indian race, and was the cause of its ultimate extinction. The Saturn influence finally works via all the other systems into the glandular system, which secretes the hardest parts of man. This slow decline is characterized by a kind of ossification, which is clearly reflected in the external form. If you look at the pictures of the old American Indians, the process of ossification described above is evident in the decline of this race. In a race such as this, everything pertaining to the forces of Saturn evolution has become realized in a special manner. Then Saturn withdrew into itself, abandoned man to his bony system, and thus hastened his decline. One feels something of this truly occult activity if one observes how, in the 19th century, a representative of these old American Indians still preserves a memory of that great Atlantean civilization which could not adapt itself to later evolution. There exists a description of a beautiful scene in which a chieftain of this moribund, red Indian race confronts a European colonist. Imagine the conflicting emotions when two such men confront each other. The one representing those who came from Europe, and the other those who, in the earliest ages, at the time of the separation of the races, moved westward. The Red Indian brought over to the West all that was great in the Atlantean culture. What the Red Indian valued most highly was that he was still able dimly to sense something of the former greatness and majesty of a period which existed in the old Atlantean epoch when the separation of the races had hardly begun, when man could look up to the sun and perceive the spirits of form through a sea of mist. Through an ocean of mist, the Atlantean was clairvoyantly aware of the seven spirits of form acting in concert, and this cooperative activity was called by the Atlanteans the Great Spirit who revealed himself to man in ancient Atlantis. The Atlantean had not assimilated all that the Venus, Mercury, Mars, and Jupiter spirits brought about in the East, to whom we owe all the civilizations which reached their zenith in Europe in the middle of the 19th century. The descendant of the brown race did not participate in this development. He held firm to the great spirit of the primeval past. He became aware of the achievements of the Europeans who, in a remote past, had also known the great spirit. When a piece of paper was laid before him on which were many little symbols, letters of which he understood nothing, all that was alien to him, for in his soul still dwelt the Great Spirit. The speech he made had been preserved to us, and it is noteworthy because it provides evidence of what we have already indicated. It runs somewhat as follows. Here, in the soil, trampled beneath the feet of the conquerors, the bones of my brothers lie buried. Why are the feet of our conquerors allowed to desecrate the graves of my brothers? Because they are in possession of that which makes the white man great. But there is something else which makes the brown man great. It is the Great Spirit who speaks to him in the soughing of the wind, in the murmuring of the forest, in the surging of the waves, in the purling of the book, in thunder and in lightning. That is the Spirit who to us speaks truth. Yes, from the lips of the Great Spirit comes truth. But your spirits here on paper and who express what to you is great, they do not speak the truth. Thus spoke the Indian chieftain from his point of view. Redskin is servant of the Great Spirit. Paleface is servant of the spirits who, in black shapes, resemble and can you pull that up a little bit? I can't see the chat's blocking it. Thank you. Let's see. Resembling pygmy beings. He was referring to the letters. Dance on the paper. They do not speak the truth. This dialogue of historic importance was exchanged between the conqueror and the last of the great chieftains of the Red Indians. Here we have an example of the Saturn forces and their activity, and of what follows from the cooperation between Saturn and other spirits, at such a moment as this when two contrasting civilizations meet. Thus we have seen how here on Earth the birth of universal humanity was prepared by the Elohim, or the natural spirits of form, how then the five principal races of human evolution detach themselves from the collective body of mankind, form the teeming mass of humanity, and how these five races are related to the guiding spirits in the hierarchy of the abnormal spirits of form, races whom we must name after the 5 planets, whereas the normal spirits of form are centered in the sun and in the moon. From here, we shall pass on to something which will be easier to understand, because we shall be able to relate it to something familiar to us, namely to tribes and to peoples. That was
Hell yeah.
interesting.
Yeah,
Hell yeah.
that's all of it, guys. That's the whole article here, or snippet, or speech that he gave. Portion of a speech he gave, I think, is what it is. That's most of his content was him giving lectures and it getting written down. So pretty interesting stuff. I want to add a little bit to it, though. Today, with kind of like memes, branding, like cuisines being like very ironed out, you know, at this point, like we have our Italian, Chinese, right? Everything's kind of nicely sorted into a predictable type. We can add a lot more to what Rudolf Steiner was throwing down. So let's just kind of real quick, let's overview those races. Okay. Sun and the moon are set to the side. Sun and moon aren't included in that. But that's why, remember it, throughout that, he was kind of touching on the man is the measure of the cosmos principle, right? When you look out into the stars, you're kind of looking into the body at the same time. So 2 luminaries, and I always talk about this, you know, man is the measure of the universe. There's 12 in man, there's 7 in man, but the 7 is 2 plus 5. 7 is 2 plus 5. That is 2 hands, each with 5 fingers. Jesus had 2 fish and 5 loaves, right? Is that true? And then there was also iambic pentameter. Okay? Iambic pentameter. 5 sets of 2 beats, or 2 syllables. That's one of the most popular, you know. Shakespeare wrote much of his stuff in iambic pentameter.
Yeah.
And it's believed, you know, and that goes back to the Greeks too. It wasn't their most popular meter or verse, but it was around 700 years BC, I believe, at the latest. And Jesus, basically, that points to the fact Jesus may have been speaking in iambic pentameter, right? The 2 fish and the 5 loaves, but whatever. So we've got that going on. You got 7 chakras in the body, but you've also got 7 here in the hands, right? You got 6 in the hands too, if you want to count using 6s. If you want to count using 5s, you can do either with the hands. But focusing on the 7, we exclude the 2 because the sun and the moon are almost like amplification and what's the opposite of amplification? Nullification.
Yeah.
It would be like, you know, reducing.
Yeah.
So the sun amplifies, it excites, it's like salt in a meal. You have all these different flavors and seasonings, and salt can increase all of them. You add salt and it kind of increases all the flavor. There is such a thing as too much salt though, right? And the sun is very hot, and the sun can be sun, salt, it's the same thing. Solar, salt, you know, basically. So the sun and the moon are almost like the up and the down switch on your remote control, right? Up, down, right? And moon, not to say it's negative in every single area or approach, but that's the general distinction is the sun is active and the moon is more passive. There's lots of different opinions about the sun and the moon and this and that, but that's the more prevalent one, more universal, more traditional one. So we exclude the sun and the moon and we look at the 5 planets. So like he said, there's a little bit of mixing going on, and that's okay, right? But starting off with the Mars race, this one is one that people will really like. Do you have any paintings of the planets that we could look
Yeah,
at
I'll pull up Mars.
to help people get the flavor, character of Mars?
Oh, I'll share my screen real quick. 1 second. It's up.
So we've got the planet Mars. And remember, guys, if you haven't been keeping up with this, you might not know, we are not heliocentric astrologers. We are geocentric astrologers. I think you have to be geocentric if you want to be a good astrologer. There are good heliocentric astrologers. There's some really good ones, but I think the true essence of astrology is a Ptolemaic world view. It is Earth at the center. You can believe whatever you want about the sun, and yes, Mercury and Venus do seem to be tethered to the sun. But it's almost like they demoted Earth, the center of everything, to just a slave or a servant of the sun. Right. It's an over exaltation, an over emphasis on the sun and the sun's, sun worship, basically.
I'm going to disagree a little bit and just, the longer this goes on, guys, if you're an astrologer and you're a heliocentrist, it's embarrassing. And the longer you wait to come to reality, it's going to be just more and more pie on your face, which is fine. Like, I don't have all the answers. I've got, blank spots and knowledge, but it's genuinely fucking embarrassing to be a heliocentric astrologer, because tropical astrology is a geocentric planar science. Fact. Thank you, Santos Bonacci. That just is what it is. And if you're an astrologer, you know that there's truth in astrology, or else why would you be studying astrology? Yes or yes. So with all the information out there, it's literally just fucking embarrassing the longer this goes on and the longer you take to come over to the side that we live in a geocentric universe, which ultimately is good fucking news. Like, in what way is that bad news? And it's whatever. I'll land the plane, but it's a litmus test, and you're failing, is what it is, realistically. Sorry, I'll be a little more harsh than Longo.
That's okay. That's okay. Yeah. But just because we're looking at a planet, or because we say planet, doesn't mean that we're like falling for heliocentrism. Planet has nothing to do with heliocentricity. Planet means wanderer. Plane, it's the same. Plane, it doesn't mean like that flat. It does in a sense, because it means ranging, right? Like a wanderer, like if you're a planet, you're someone on a plane who has free motion, right? You can move, and you're kind of the planets, even though they are spinning around things, right? Apparently, they're actually more or less on like a plane. Even if you're looking at the heliocentric model, all the planets and major bodies are on the same, more or less trace the same, band of the zodiac. And that is, no matter which way you look at it, you're always going to have to reduce your computing to like a flat system. All right. So we don't believe that we went to the moon. We don't believe that NASA is giving us the perfect imagery, the perfect photographs. We don't believe that. But Mars is red, and people have known that for thousands and thousands of years. So don't let NASA have a monopoly on describing planets or studying, or, don't go full retard just because you hear space, and we don't say space, by the way. We don't talk about space. We're talking about planets in the heavens, as the Bible describes, not in your nothingness, expansive void of a vacuum that's in the middle of nowhere by accident for no reason. All kicked off 25 bajillion years ago on a Tuesday at 4:30 p.m.
Longo,
And- Yeah, go
can I
ahead.
share this real quick, bro? It's the anniversary of this, guys. December 14th, 1972. It's the anniversary.
Really?
If you think this is real, you
Pause it.
are literally brain. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I'll pause it.
Are we gonna get copyrighted for this?
It's this. I don't see how we could. We're commenting on a video. It's fair use. It's from the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum. This is official NASA footage, guys. How dare you question this?
Yeah.
You know, if you think this is real, you're fucking retarded.
Yep.
Brain damage is the only thing that could excuse this poor behavior of buying into this shit.
And stubbornness. You know, someone made their mind up about it. They heard about moon landing deniers and they said, "Oh, that's retarded. I watched that with my, I was there. I heard it on the radio, this or that." And it's kind of like trans kids. Like once you've already kind of argued one side of the argument on certain issues, the implications of switching your side on that argument mean you have to rearrange your entire worldview. You have to admit that you were deceived, that you may have even done harm. But whatever.
Same thing with jabs. That's why it's tough for some people to come around with that kind of shit.
Yeah, this is clearly made in a Hollywood basement or Stanley Kubrick in London or some movie, airplane hangar movie set or something like that.
Dude, yeah. They claim that thing goes up to 2,000 miles per hour and docks with another rocket ship on the moon. It's so stupid. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing that we fell for it initially, and it's worse now in the year of our Lord 2025. I mean, geez, man. Like, genuinely, whatever.
Yeah. Totally. I couldn't agree more, but we're bringing it up because we're going to be looking at the colors and depictions of planets, and basically Mars is red. It's always been red. Mars is associated with iron. Iron rusts red. Rust means red. Roost. Roosters are usually red too, by the way. Rooster marks the sunrise. Aries is the sunrise. You see how this all kind of ties in? Mars is red. It's the red planet. Always has been. It's the iron planet. Over in Asia, I think they call it the metal planet or something like that. Fire planet, maybe. But do you have a painting of like the god Mars?
Yeah, it's somewhere else in the let me just take off the screen for a second and I will pull it up. This freaking slideshow is tremendous at this point. I just keep like adding to it every week. It's in here though.
So the Marshall race, as Steiner was saying, and I agree 100%, is the Asian race, East Asian. They said Mongolian back then. That's including like all of East Asia. So we'd say that's Japanese, Korean, Thai, Cambodian, Vietnamese, Mongolian, all the squinty ones. Okay, we know who we're talking about. The squinty-eyed ones. The yellow race, very straight hair. Pretty much never see an Asian person with curly hair. But yeah, you got something for Mars?
Yeah, I love this painting so much. We're blocking it. Yeah, cool.
Nice. So this is Mars here. You've got Mars prepped for war, weapons, okay, associated with Aries, Scorpio. But Mars, just to get a flavor profile here, kind of a little bit of personality. Mars is hot, fiery, warlike, right? Martial. And what do we see in the martial race, East Asian race? Martial arts coming out of East Asia. You guys are aware of this, right? Most martial arts come from East Asia. They are stereotypically associated with martial arts. You see an Asian person, you're like, they're either smart or they're like Jackie Chan, right? That's kind of, why is that? Where does that stereotype come from? It's their martial influence. What else can we do with this? Well, what else is East Asia known for? Spicy food, Thai food, some Chinese food is very spicy. Some Japanese food is very spicy, right? Got things like wasabi and all these spicy sauces and all that. That's the martial race. They can handle spicy foods better than anyone. They can just handle it. Their digestion is hotter or it's whatever. And they can just crush spicy food like no one's business. And yeah, so martial arts, spicy food.
Those aren't. Okay.
And Asian families tend to be just very martial. You know, and the kids are like, you know, they do this, they got their backpack all ready and all this, you know, they're like raising themselves. It's like everyone's in the military in East Asia. The whole culture is just militaristic and martial, discipline, order, you know, no shame allowed, right? No defeat, no retreat, no surrender allowed. Commit suicide instead of surrender. That is this martial element. So basically, Mars, martial arts, spicy food, a martial, warlike, military-like family kind of code. Also, Asian women, they put the bead on, okay? They beat the shit out of their husbands. Okay?
They really do, dude.
Bro. The ones...
They really do.
We're generalizing, of course. There's tons of different ethnic groups and countries and cultures, but like Thai women, from what I've heard, okay. Yes, I do the occasional scuba diving in the Philippines and Thailand, and it's only for the cuisine. I'm a lover of the cuisine and the scuba diving. And just kidding, I've never been to Asia at all, but people who have been, from what I've heard, the women in some of those cultures are just ruthless. They even if they are submissive and like fill the role of like a mother and a homekeeper in other ways, even some of them will have just a fiery, explosive anger to them. And you see this at some Asian restaurants, okay? YouTube's gonna love this stuff. You see them at some Asian restaurants, the lady's like running that shit, you know? The mom of the family's got her kid there, like barking orders, yelling at her husband in front of, I don't know how many Asian restaurants I've seen that happen, where the like matriarch is yelling at like the man in the family restaurant. But okay. So martial race. Anything you want to say on that?
Yeah, well, they're known for being people of middle stature. They're not particularly, there are some tall Asians. You got your Yao Mings, of course, but like for the most part, they're not super tall. And those under the influence of Mars, like Aries people, are not the tallest typically. And like this goes back to stuff we said in a few episodes back, guys. Like when we talk about heights and different things like that, it's of course relative to your family. So like if you're Aries, you might be shorter than your siblings or whatever it is. So like obviously you might not be a short person overall, but it's relative to your genetics too. So these things, but yeah, like they're not particularly tall, and that goes that definitely is martial types for sure, I'd say.
Yep. So moving on, martial race, that should be enough to get the general kind of flavor of the race. Also, who saw, was it 2008, the Beijing Olympics? Was that 2004 or 2008? China Olympics. You remember that? Like, I'm gonna have to look it up. Beijing Olympics opening ceremony. You guys remember that? Where it's like 1,000 people playing the drums at once. Or watch. Oh shit, no, that's not it. Beijing Olympics opening ceremony. I remember seeing this shit live. Okay, it was like 1,000 drummers playing the drums, like pounding these war drums at like the same time in like unison with like glowing neon sticks, drumsticks. It was so martial. Like the main theme was like red. All right, that's a dude right there, by the way. That's a dude.
Man, baby. Holy shit.
Yo, they snuck dudes in. That's such an age. Dude. I don't know if these are all supposed to be women.
That could be a really ugly older woman, though. Maybe.
No, that's a man.
I mean, hey, I wouldn't. I don't know.
That's hilarious. Dude, China be doing that.
Imagine if it is a woman, though.
Dude, China will pass. They do that all the time. Europeans snapped out of that. Well, I guess we still have the trans thing going on, but for performances, like, yeah, dudes who get passed off as girls all the time. I think these are supposed to be women. Okay, that one's trying to look like a woman. This is hilarious.
Maybe they're just really old, man.
Bro, you need to go to more Asian massage parlors. Up your game, bro.
I don't think I do.
You need to be able to tell the races of these middle-aged Asian women. You need to be able to tell the gender of these middle-aged Asian people.
That is a weakness of mine.
All right, moving on. Also, rub and tug. Just to let's talk about that too. The rub and tug, very martial. The whole jerk off culture, getting jerked off by these Asian people who are Asian women who are just like totally disassociating and like not. That is very martial too, like male oriented pleasure. I don't know how else to say it. Yeah. So that whole rub and tug in and out fast food approach, very martial.
Shameful.
Yeah, shameful. But they, and Asian women, from what I've heard, they can be very like martial, like high sex drive, spicy. They have almost like a masculine approach to sexuality sometimes. Asian women are not, thought of whatever. I don't like Asian women, by the way. Full disclosure. So very all right, moving on. Venus race. Can we go look at Venus?
Yeah, for sure.
The Venus race. What's his face? Steiner was saying that the Venus race was very. He was saying the Malay people. Now, Malay, I don't necessarily know what Malay means. Like, if he's saying Malaysian, that clearly is. I'm not going to agree with that 100%. Malaysians are just mostly Asian mixed with a little bit of like Indian or South Asian, but they're mostly East Asian phenotype. Malay at one time, I believe, was a name for like India.
It says Sumatra. It pretty much is Malaysia. And then the Malays as an ethnic group. It's definitely Asians, different types of Asians.
Malay. Hang on.
I know you.
The max broadest application of. Okay, so I guess we're just gonna have to disagree. I'm gonna disagree with Steiner here and make what I think is a correction. Instead of the Malay race, I'm gonna call this the Venusian race, or the Arab race, or Hindustani race. I don't know what you'd call them. Basically, everything from India to Egypt, and maybe some squinty-eyed people in there too. But we're really talking about like we're really talking about the cultures where the men dress kind of feminine, flowy clothes. The architecture is extremely feminine and voluptuous and curvy. You know, the mosques, the Hindu temples. And by the way, in Asia, we should have talked about this. The martial type. Look at the building styles in East Asia. Very martial, very masculine, pointy, spiky, angular, right? It's very simplistic and masculine, rugged. But any of like the embellishments or kind of flair is masculine to it. Or like spiky, right? Very Fire Nation, if you want to think Avatar. When we go to Venus race, so from India all the way to Egypt, we see a flowiness, a soft curvaceousness to the architecture. And the dress too, men and women dress extremely flowy and feminine in these places, from India all the way to Egypt. That is the Venusian race. So this is Arabs, Middle Easterners. And again, there's a lot of mixture going on here. By the time you get to Egypt, we're talking about the Venus race mixing with the Mercury. The Mercury race. In Malay, I think we're seeing the Venusian race mixing with the martial race. That's where you get some of those, Malaysian types. So
Yeah.
Venus is very feminine, and these races are very feminine. The men act rather feminine in these places. They like to accessorize and jewelry, right? The stereotype of like Iranian, Hindu, Middle Eastern, like mall workers, kiosk workers having like all this jewelry and accessories, and it's very feminine. And the skincare, they're obsessed with the skincare and the facial massages and oils and the lotions in the hair. The Venusian race is very vain. So from India to Egypt, you see a lot of vanity in these people. Now, the Venus race, going from India to Egypt, we see an emphasis on sweet foods and desserts. Who is known, leaving chocolate to the side. You can include chocolate if you want, but putting chocolate to the side, what culture is known for their desserts and their sweets? India is pretty well known for their sweets. The Middle East is pretty well known for its sweets. Arab cultures, big on sweets and desserts, things like that. And their culture errs on the side of sweetness, basically. Like curries can be spicy, but they'll always be a lot sweeter than what you find in East Asia. East Asian food has a ton of spice. South Asian food can be spicy, but it'll almost always be sweeter. And you see that. Venus is, sweet, has this sugariness to it. And what else? Anything jump to your mind?
I don't want to get us any death threats, so I'll just chill on what I was going to say about how a certain Venusian religion reacts very emotionally when you criticize it.
Right.
I'll just leave that at that.
Yeah. And Islam, people say, oh, Islam is like very anti-woman. Like how could Islam is kind of a reaction to the original disposition of those places. Originally, this culture was very feminine, and they were largely goddess culture based. Now, how do we know that the Venusian race likes Venus? Because Arabs, Middle Easterners, Islam, I should just say Islam, celebrates on Friday as their favorite day. So that's a declaration that this culture is Venusian. Friday is Freya, who's just the Viking or Germanic way of saying Venus. Freya, Friday. In Spanish, it's Viernes. And Yeah. What was I saying? I forgot.
That Islam and Venus and Friday.
Yeah, they worship on Friday, just like Jews worship on Saturday. Christians worship on Sunday. It's almost like choosing your planetary allegiance.
100%.
And so much of this culture, much of this race that goes from India to Egypt is Islamic. That's not by coincidence. It harmonizes with the Venusian race more. And you could say that they oppress women. Men in those cultures oppress women. I would argue that men in those cultures become women. They act like women. Like they are closer to women in certain qualities, certain attributes. So, okay. Moving on. That's the Venusian race. Let's look at Mercury. I don't think we saw a picture of Venus either, with the planet.
Oh, I got it. The photo is in a way different spot. My bad.
That's okay. Don't worry. But do you have a picture of Mercury, the planet?
Yeah, way down here. Let's see. It's Taurus today's. I had these slides ready to go, dude.
Oh, nice. No, those are good. Those are good. Those are good slides.
It's really weird though. It's really hard to find a picture of a white couple on Google Images for some reason. Very interesting that. But yeah, there's Mercury. Painting of Mercury.
So Mercury, wow, it looks a lot like the moon there. But you sure that's not the moon?
I don't, dude. I googled like painting of Mercury and like that's what that. Oh, that's no, that was Venus.
Oh.
I don't know. Allegedly, we could just call that Mercury. I don't know. That was supposed to be Venus. Like this is what I had. Like we got Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Venus, and Mercury.
Okay,
It does look like the moon though, but there's no real craters though. It's just like a little spot, like the moon's a little spot. But
yeah, we'll just call it Mercury.
Yeah,
we'll call it Mercury, and maybe it is Mercury.
It looks mercurial-ish as far as colors go.
Yeah. Now, Mercury is the closest planet to the sun, and I'm surprised. I'm surprised that Steiner didn't touch on this. The black race, or the Negro race, Negroid race, whatever you want to call them, the black race has their skin color like that, in my view, because Mercury is the planet that can accommodate the sun's heat, that can receive the sun's heat the best. Mercury is best suited to endure the heat and proximity to the sun. Mercury is very close to the sun. Whether you're on geocentric or heliocentric, Mercury is like on a leash, a short leash attached to the sun. It's revolving around the sun, you could say. It's stuck to the sun. And because of that, Mercury has to be able to endure that heat and light. And thus, I think, the mercurial race exhibits that in their anatomy. Their skin and the top of their heads are suited to proximity to heat and light. They can endure heat hitting down on the top of their head. You know, that's what an afro is, by the way. An afro, or hair that stands up or can be fashioned to stand up like that on its own, will protect you from direct sunlight overhead. The same thing that'll cook my hair, cook my head, you know, top of my head feels like an oven sometimes, like a frying pan if I'm out in the sun, you know. Black people hair, I haven't touched too many afros, but they've never been hot when I touch them. They keep in a cooler temperature. So you have the top of the head being protected with a denser, you know, kind of sun protection. And also, someone pointed this out to me. The races who live closer to cooler temperatures have hair that falls down over their neck to warm the neck, to conserve heat. The cultures that have, you know, are closer to the sun or closer to hot areas, they have hair that stands up. So you can look at someone and kind of guess where they're supposed to be living almost. Like, hair that stands up on its own is better suited to hot place because it'll stay off the neck. It'll keep your neck breathing, cooling you down, cooling the blood to the brain. It's very important. Just holding an ice cube to your neck lowers the temperature of the blood going to your brain. Just an ice cube pressed against your neck. So what do you think all this warmth from your hair, like for me, when my hair is long, I get hot. You overheat a lot easier. If I tie my hair up, it's, I don't get hot as easily. So it's breathing. So you see that naturally in the races, So the black race has the hair that stands up off the neck, protects the top of the head from direct sunlight. Also, the skin being dark very, mirrors Mercury's nature. The black skin, almost like a solar panel, is eating that direct sunlight. That race found a way to digest, to make benefit of that immense, strong sunlight. So that's where you get the mercurial race. Steiner didn't talk about this either. Nimbleness, agility, athletic prowess. Say what you want about the black race. No one's denying that they're pretty good at sports, right? That is exactly what you'd expect from a mercurial race. Mars is pretty fast, pretty strong, athletic, but Mercury is like the what do they call it? The snitch, the snatch in
The snitch.
the snitch in Harry Potter. That's Mercury. Super fast, super quick, agile. Mercury with the wings on his ankles. That is Nikes. Why do black people love their shoes? Why do black people love the Nikes and the Jordans and the Adidas and the Pumas, Because it's like Mercury. Mercury, being proud of his sandals, being proud of his winged Air Jordans. That's the Mercury culture. Man, the shoes, bruh. It's all about the agility. And so that's Mercury, the Mercury race, obsessing over his sandals. And then, what are some other ones? Okay, people aren't going to like this, maybe not. But again, I'm going to give each of the races their due here, okay? We're going to give credit where it's due. Mercury. You have rhythm. Mercury, that RY at the end of Mercury, is where we get words like rhyme, rhythm, arithmetic. That re with an RY, rhythm and rhyme. Brother, please, can we agree that the black race excels in rhythm and rhyme? Now, rap is pretty garbage. Most rap is garbage.
Hot garbage.
But some of these battle raps, and I know this is cringe, and I do not like battle raps. I think it's super lame. But I have been floored by some of the actual improvisational battle raps I've heard, especially the pun-based ones, because I'm a sucker for puns and words that sound like other words. Some of these battle rappers are so capable and so, to see someone come up with rhymes on the spot, totally improvised, not prepared before the night before, battle rapping, like dissing. This is like wordplay rapping. Go look it up. There's some good ones. And I'll be honest, I think the black race excels in this. And American rap, mainstream rap, is not the way to. American rap is not the best exhibition or representation of this. That's total degeneracy. White, Asian, Hispanic can make that garbage music. But I think black people have an innate fascination with rhymes and rhyme structure and rhythm. Some of the best drummers there's ever been have been black men, Art Blakey. I love Art Blakey. I love, the Allman Brothers had one of their drummers is black. But Art Blakey's amazing. Very talented. And there's a ton, I can't name, but all these great jazz drummers and all this. Name one black drummer. Yeah, I can only name one, really. Let me check. Refresh my memory. Thomas Pidgeon. I know him. Didn't have to look him up. He's really good. I think he shares my birthday. Questlove, bro. Questlove be killing them drums. My beep. No, Questlove sucks at the drums. But let's see.
Tom Morello?
Max Roach. Buddy Rich is not. Is Buddy Rich black? Is Buddy Rich part black? Oh, he's Jewish. Okay. Why, dude, Chad? AI is so dumb. So dumb. Yeah, I don't know that many. But I know they're good, and I know that there's tribes out in Africa who do polyrhythms that you'd have to basically study and really work to kind of wrap your head around. In America, we have very simple, straightforward, time signatures or meters in our music. In Africa, there are tribesmen who've never looked at a piece of paper, who've never picked up a pencil, who've never done any of this, who are very, very good and naturally have all these, polyrhythms, which is basically multiple rhythms happening at the same time. And it was hard to keep track of if you're not really, really good at it. But they do it naturally over there. It's like this is something that Europeans only generate when they're in like a prog rock, math rock, like pushing the envelope scenario. Whereas the tribesmen are not doing this to like impress anyone or like show it to their professors at Berkeley or push the envelope. That is just their innate natural like rhythm. Like when they're tapping their feet, they're pulling out these super complex rhythms out of nowhere. So credit where credit's due. Okay. I am no simp or race cuck or anything like that. But let's be honest. White people ain't got no rhythm. Okay. You see a white concert, the clap is like one Mississippi long. People are clapping like stray claps here and there, clapping to the beat. You got all these stray claps. It sounds like a, when everyone claps on the beat. Black concert, crisp. Everyone's locked in, okay? I always say, you take 100 people. And I love to say this because I know my followers are based, and this will get a rise out of some of them. You take 100 white people, you lock them in a room together. I'm sorry. I love the white man. I love racial pride, but it'll probably end in a bloodbath. 100 white people, random white people, lock them in a room. Might be a bloodbath. Very likely to be a bloodbath, power struggle. Take 100 black people in a room, 100 black people, lock them in a room. You're going to get one of the best musical performances, one of the best, coordinated. They're going to find some song, some dance that they all do. Just lock in. Now, of course, we're cutting guns and theft out of the equation here, things like that. We're just locking them in a room, leaving them to entertain themselves, basically, is the test here. But who thinks I'm right or wrong about that, The black people are going to entertain themselves by just kind of getting in rhythm but okay. So that's the Mercurial race. Venus race, Mars race we talked about. Let's talk about the Saturn race real quick. Saturn, god of time, death, some people would say, sacrifice, the skeletal system, boniness. And
The super chat you just saw.
some of these people are funny. Okay, here. No coiner with $2. Okay, here I already read that one. Feel the Heartbeat with $5 says, white people invented martial arts. Legend has it invented by Bodhidharma, the blue-eyed barbarian. Maybe, who knows? Oh god. No coiner 5599. All right, I got. Fuck. Can't read that, bro. I can't be that mean. $2. Mercury had lots of affairs and abandoned his kids. Same could be said for Jupiter, maybe though. Maybe not.
Saturn ate his kids.
Maybe not a strong argument, but I see where you're coming from. Okay. So, Saturnian race, Native Americans. Now, people are going to say, well, hang on. Why did Steiner group all the Native Americans together? Well, we're allowing for some mixture here, of course. In the north, in the northeast, you've got a lot of Viking or seemingly European contribution to the Native American genetics, phenotypes. When you look in the Caribbean, it seems there was maybe an African presence before Columbus, whether that's someone getting shipwrecked or washed away or stuck in a storm. There may have been a Negro presence in the Caribbean or the southeastern United States even, or the northern coasts of South America, right where the Gulf Stream would take you from Africa, right? Before Columbus showed up. So you've got the black race over in Africa, the Saturn race in America. They're going to be mixing a lot, so just allow for some mixture, and down over by the Bering Strait, you're going to see a lot of more Asian, more Siberian Native Americans. Down in South America, you're going to see some Asian looking ones. And then also in other places, there are ones who also look like they're from Africa. So there's a lot of variety in the Americas, but we're talking about the red race, right? The red man. And that group, that type, is associated with Saturn. Now, this is not a spiritual association with Saturn, although it is kind of, right? Because people are going to say, well, what about the Jews? Or what about the Pharisees or the synagogue of Satan? We'll put that to the side just for a sec, and we'll explain it. But the Native Americans, especially in, Florida, Southeast United States, Central America, Mesoamerica, these people did a lot of sacrifice. Okay, so you could say that they're spiritually aligned with Saturn, but we are talking more about anatomy right now. Saturn rules the bones in the skeletal system. Steiner made a point of that, but the Native American race is the boniest by far. Go look at all the cultures around the world. The Native Americans are the boniest. The cheekbones, the shoulder bones poking out up, out of the flesh. There's a boniness to the Native Americans, and that comes from Saturn. So there's a prominence of sacrifice, blood sacrifice, animal or human, and child, of course. The Central Americans, the Aztec, the Maya, these people were doing lots of sacrifice. People say, "Oh no, that's just a narrative. That's propaganda." No, they were doing it. I've seen the altars. I've touched the altars. I've seen sacrificial knives. Okay. They were scalping. No one denies that they were scalping. Okay. These guys weren't just Pocahontas running around petting raccoons and singing to the foxes and all that. These were some mean hombres. Okay. Some of them, a lot of them.
That's the crown, the scalp.
Oh, bingo. Thank you. I probably would have forgotten that. That's a total Saturn link, is the scalping obsession. Very Saturnian. Saturn rules the crown chakra, like Merlin just said. So when they're scalping, they're pretty much saying, they're like trying to interrupt or destroy the connection with their planetary god, Desecrate. That's how you desecrate, your enemy, basically. Separate him from his favorite god or something like that. So, scalping, sacrifice. What else? Especially in Aztec, Maya, Inca, timekeeping. What do we remember these cultures for? The Maya calendar, right? You type in Maya, probably the next auto-generated suggested search term will be calendar. Maya calendar. Sacrifice, timekeeping, the calendars, architecture. They're some of the best architects, in the ancient world, in those places. And but yeah, very Saturnian, a lot of bones, using bones for stuff. Just like using the whole animal, like nose to tail, kind of Saturnian. But what else? Anything else jump out to you, Merlin?
Not really. I mean, that covers it pretty much, but like that timekeeping is really good because that stuff even just took a long time to make. They took their time with things. They weren't in a rush with that. And like Steiner said, it's what Saturn really is like the acceptance of nature, that all material will eventually corrupt. And in a sense, accept it. They had especially when they were warriors. They didn't have much of a fear of death, allegedly, stuff like that. And Saturn, rules death, the necessity of death, really. So yeah, it's all there. Very Saturnian.
Also, bathing is a very Saturnian thing, and the Native Americans were obsessed with, at least in Florida, I know for sure, they were obsessed with ritual immersion. And in like Viking cultures, you would only wash on Saturday, Sabbath, the bath day. It's the best time to wash, clean off, sterilize yourself. But okay, so Saturn race, we talked about them. Some of the bones, the skulls, But okay, Jupiter, the Jupiter type. The Jupiter type, right? We're talking about the white race. People say Caucasian. I think that's kind of misleading too, because when you go over to the Caucasus area, you're talking about the Venus race mixing with the Jupiter race and the Martial race mixing with the Jupiter race. Jupiter, I would say Norse. This is the Nordic or Germanic, Celtic, Northern European root race. Mediterraneans are mostly Jupiter mixed with a little bit of Mercury race, But okay, Jupiter. What do we know about white people? Philosophical, right? Greek philosophy, wisdom, I guess you could say, right? Expansiveness. There's a pursuit of forms, right? Thinking in forms, thinking in concepts is a very, I guess you could say, Nordic thing. And expansiveness, right? The desire, every culture, every people around the world have engaged in conquest or war, but the white man has, it seems, an insatiable need. I hope, and this isn't necessarily a bad thing, because we actually need more of it today. We're actually dying. We're losing like our racial zest.
Yeah,
We're losing our conquering spirit, but So it's kind of hard to imagine, but the white race initially was so expansive, like the planet Jupiter, so big, needed so much. What did Hitler call it? Lebensraum? What did he say? Lebensraum? I think that's right.
Yeah, and someone in chat earlier was, somewhat calling us out for not mentioning how, the white race had gone globally from 30% to less than 10% of the global population. Like, guys, we're aware of that, I'm not going to speak for Longo, but we're at least, I'm okay with the self-determination, the right to associate with who you want to associate with, downsides of Jupiter is aloofness. Look what's happening to Britain today. That's an aloofness. That's a carefree Jupiterian attitude. Oh, it's all good. Come on in. Come on in. It's all good.
Maybe over tolerance, over forgiveness.
Yep.
Yeah, the Jupiter race being too forgiving, too tolerant. White race is the most tolerant race by far. It's not even a discussion at this point. I was talking about this last night with some people. Yeah, Lebensraum. That's right. Lebensraum. Thank you. The white race needs some leg room. We want some leg room. We need open pastures to, for our horses and our cows to kind of go around. But that's kind of how we acted throughout history. Need a lot of room, need a lot of space, And white people, there's a little bit of a coldness with the white race. Part of it has to coming from the north, the colder places, but also the fact that in Viking times, men would often say goodbye to their parents or their family or their birthplace and never see them again because you're going on a voyage, sea voyage, maritime, whatever it is. That was a defining characteristic. Every race has gone on long voyages, whatever, but that was a defining characteristic of Viking culture for a reason. For example, is your parents set you up to go somewhere else. Your parents set you up to succeed so that you can go succeed. Don't stay here and succeed. Go succeed, right? Europeans have this pushing out of the nest. Well, I shouldn't say that. I'm thinking as an American. Americans have that pushing out of the nest type of thinking, but the Vikings certainly had it too. They were willing to just not look back, right? So there's a conquering spirit. There is an expansiveness in the thought and the concepts and the models of thinking and communication. There is, downside. What's the downside to the Jupiterian race? And I'm going to be unapologetic about this, but thinking you're better than everyone, like a Sagittarius or a Jupiterian person. They might be full of good and might be full of the best attributes, but they might also think too highly of themselves. And from the other races looking in, you might be justified in saying, yeah, they think they're the best. They act like they're the best. I don't necessarily agree. I think we're at a point of collective racial shame that should be just done away with. We don't deserve
100%.
it. I'm unashamed to be white, but you could make the argument that that's something that can get attached to Jupiterian people is, and here, like I said, I'll be upfront about how could this potentially be warped into a message of superiority. Well, Jupiter is the king of kings, the king of the gods. And you could make the argument that that is the destiny of the Jupiterian race. But I won't go that far, but you could make the argument. And, Jupiter likes to teach. Do we have schools in America or schools in Europe where the black man has set up institutions of learning so that he can just teach the white man endlessly? Not really. But if you go to Africa, that's pretty much the status quo is white teachers, doing a lot of teaching. And there's no shame in this. So whatever, teaching, philosophy, expansiveness, consumption, Is the white race the fattest? I don't know. Africans aren't that fat. Black Americans are pretty fat. But other than that, who's the fattest on Earth? Probably white people. Would you agree?
Yeah. And certainly not Asians. Certainly not Indians for the most part. You know? Again, like and like guys, when we talk about this stuff, like this is generalities, right? Like, like every race is influenced by every planet, but these are just the ruling planets of the different races. So yeah, I would say white the fattest. Not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah.
Pleasantly plump in some way.
And what else? So, travel. I think whites like to travel the most, or at least have a history of doing it the most. So what else? Jupiterian race.
I think that aloofness is a big thing. Like there are definitely forces at play in the world today that are playing the different groups' weaknesses against one another in a big way. Like the natural order is completely subverted, in my humble opinion. And then like those who are trying to pull the strings, are aware of these things and are doing specific things to trigger the different groups to be against one another as much as possible. Like Longo said, you shouldn't be ashamed for being white. I completely agree. But like, you shouldn't be ashamed for being whatever you are, like not to be like a fucking total hippie, but like, God put you here for a reason. God's plan is unfolding as it is for a reason. And at the end of the day, everything's going to be okay.
Yeah. And each race is supposed to kind of think they're the best. Like that's called self-esteem. Like if you don't think you're the best, you're probably not worth living as yourself, like you should think you're not the best, but there's a level of self-esteem that all the races should have. And if they want to theorize about them being the best, okay, good. Each country should think they're the best, or else don't fucking live there. Like, basically. Okay. That's most of everything we wanted to cover. That was a nice amount to get through. And again, we like all the races here. I want the black man to be his best, to be at his best, and the yellow man, the red man, the white man. White people aren't killing it, or we're not automatically just killing it right now. We can be doing things a lot better. And I think racial harmony will come through each of the races thinking they're the best. Like that's a place of harmony, right? The man who thinks he's the best can respect another man who thinks he's the best, right?
100%.
But okay. And I don't think anyone's, well, whatever. Who cares? I don't. We're done with the declarations of innocence. Like, oh no, we don't mean this. No, whatever. Take it however you want. Closing thoughts, Merlin, before we hop off.
This was pretty cool. I really liked Rudolf Steiner's reading, especially the end there when it got into that speech, from the red man, the Indian, because like you just said, like, someone who's the best respects someone else who thinks he's the best. So he's like, oh, you guys have these letters. This is not the truth. The spirit is the truth. And it's like, not to take a whole like, oh, my truth type thing, but yeah, it just shows that, like you were just saying, you need to have an ego and you need to have a purpose and live it,
Totally. Guys, we got 450 in the chat. That's a great turnout for a very niche topic, controversial topic. We appreciate all the support. Guys, make sure to go check out Merlin's YouTube channel. Bring it up right here real quick. Wise Wizard Merlin with a Z.
Yes, sir.
Everyone go subscribe to Wise Wizard Merlin. Lots of good astrology content. He made a video pretty much roasting, exposing Elon Musk most recently. And check him out, guys. New channel, newish. So
Appreciate it.
and then also go check out my other channel. Dr. Narco Longo. This is my second channel. This is my backup channel. This is like my non-Florida channel, I guess. Like astrology, things like that will be archived here, kind of. Dropping that in the chat right now, too. And go subscribe, guys. If you're subscribed to Old World Florida, go subscribe to Dr. Narco Longo. I'd appreciate it. And yeah, okay. That is the 5 planetary route races. We'll see what we choose for the topic next week. Thanks for being here, everyone.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Longo.
Thank you, Merlin. Good stuff as always.
Yes, sir.
All right. Everyone, real quick here. Let me get some music up. All right.
Can we request that fucking banger, dude, from your boy as the outro? I played on my
like rock music.
Dude, what was it? That guy I'm True by what's his name? By Case and Stiff. Dude, that song has 2,000 plays on Spotify, guys. Go put it on a playlist, man. It deserves more.
Yeah, it's fire.
OWF supporter.
Yep. He asked me if I don't know if he reached out to me. I don't remember if I asked or if he just told me he was a musician. But as soon as I heard that song, I was like, dude, you gotta let me play that on my streams. All right.
Doesn't mind.
Everyone, have a good night. Peace.
I'm true. Yeah. Thinking about you.